Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the After Dark show. Alhamdulillah, I'm joined with Ayub, as well as two guests tonight. The first one is Iqbal Nasim. MashaAllah, I've known Iqbal since I can remember, subhanAllah. I remember about maybe 8 years ago or 9 years ago. I was just about to finish college. It was the last 10 nights of Ramadan. In one of our local mosques in South London, we were there, and myself and Iqbal, we after Maghrib, we went to one of the local chicken shops to eat some food. And I remember at that time, I wanted to get into finance, or that's just what I was good at studying, right? And Iqbal asked me this really powerful question that I think changed my life completely. And I actually ask a lot of people the same question to this day. If money was not a problem, right, and you could do anything you wanted to change the world, but it had to be one thing, what would you do? And subhanAllah, back then, I remember I said, no, I would do things to do with youth engagement. And that had a huge impact. And that's why I'm doing what I am doing today. I remember I had some university offers which I rejected based on sort of Iqbal's advice. But before I get into that even more, I'd like to bring Iqbal into the show. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Oh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. How are you?
Yes, bro, you're good. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, good. Well, I'm glad I changed your life, bro.
SubhanAllah. The reason why I started with that story is because I think one of the topics of today about not being broke, I think it had a lot to do with that, i.e. being skilled in something that you enjoy doing, and also something that can have a positive impact.
Well, I think you got me for the wrong show, to be honest. If this was a show about how to be broke, then I'm appropriate. but anyway, we'll see what we can do. I've been broke for the last 10 years. I don't know. I'm not sure this is. But we're going to wait for Ibrahim to come and save us. To tell us how to turn pennies into pounds.
Subhanallah. And with that, so Ibrahim is from, I think, the founder of the Islamic Finance Guru. The Islamic Finance Guru is a hub to help Muslim entrepreneurs, Muslim businesses, and Muslims with their finances, their personal finances, which subhanAllah has a massive impact. And inshallah today he's going to be helping us broke guys on the show. Assalamu alaikum, Ibrahim. How are you doing? And actually, just quickly before Ibrahim starts talking, Ibrahim, you might also know him as the uncle that collects everyone's Eid gifts and swaps them around and sends them to other people so that he does not have to purchase any Eid gifts. Assalamu alaikum. How are you doing, Ibrahim?
Wa alaikum assalam, Hamza. I'm not doing too bad, to be honest. I'm not sure. I think I'm the third broke person in this group, but I've got plenty of ideas how not to be broke. So maybe I can dream and share the dreams.
I think you're called your type of person called a wantrepreneur.
What does a wantrepreneur mean, Ikmal?
Wannabe entrepreneur is a wantrepreneur.
Before we get into it, I also want to bring in my co-host, the one, the only, Ayub Sidat. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ayubi. Assalamu alaikum, Ayub. You're on mute, just so you know. Alhamdulillah.
I'm not sure he's even aware that he's on video.
This will be good fun. Inshallah. But we'll let Ayub figure out. The producer would be nice to take him off. Mashallah. So Ibrahim, I think we'll start with yourself, bro. Yeah.
Before we start, I really want to know. Hang on. So, Hamza, did you not go to university in the end then?
No, I never went to university.
Wow.
Yeah, subhanAllah. And actually,
that wasn't my fault, by the way.
No, when I spoke to,
I don't want to take responsibility for this man's lack of education.
I mean, that I was going to turn to you, but I thought let Hamza speak first. Maybe there's a reason.
before I spoke to Iqbal, I got a conditional offer from LSE actually, through my UCAS, and then I actually got a unconditional offer. But
and then after he spoke to me, they withdrew it.
SubhanAllah. I don't regret it at all, to be honest with you. At the time, we were running some night manias at various mosques. There were 3 mosques as well, separate to like the Islamic network work. We were running youth programs. Since then, we've helped over 10,000 youth with, you know, whatever problems they might be going through. And it's only actually 10 years later where I think we're finally turning a page in what we did. And I think that if I went to university or I was distracted with other things, that might have taken a lot longer. And I also think education can be done in many different ways. Alhamdulillah.
Student of life.
Student for life. Alhamdulillah. So Iqbal,
Yeah.
before Ibrahim does get into it, I do want to introduce you a bit, because I think I'm in a good position to introduce you without needing a paper. MashaAllah.
I prefer if you kept those things to yourself, bro.
Are you sure? No, the reason why, I know there are some young people watching, and inshallah sometimes we lack role models, you know, and I truly believe you are a role model. Alhamdulillah, so when I was young, Iqbal used to organize weekly football, monthly dish parties. Well, actually, another auntie did, but Iqbal used to run the youth side of it. And I remember once, the auntie at one of these dish parties, she bought a newspaper, and on that newspaper it had a story of Iqbal Nasim. He got his 13 A stars for GCSEs, mashallah. And honestly, at that time, it was something that, it was really inspiring. But what was more inspiring, I believe, when you were like 18, you went to Jordan, I think, to get your ijazah, right, in the Quran, or to do your hifz.
After 21 after graduation.
Yeah, subhanAllah. And again, I found that you find people who are really good at the education, just their general sort of normal education, but to also have that, it was really, really powerful. And I remember at Modern Mosque, sometimes after the Friday dars, you'd recite Quran like Abu Bakr Shatri. I'm wondering if you still can do that.
Probably, yeah.
Okay, maybe at the end we can get some Quran. But no, alhamdulillah. No, subhanAllah, but I'll take it to Ibrahim, inshallah.
I'm not sure Iqbal's like that used to having people be that nice to him.
No, really, no. It must be a little qadr, to be honest.
But
where's the catch? Where's that question about 100% donation policy coming?
We've dealt with that for this Ramadan, Ibrahim.
One of the things I do remember, like when we were playing football, every time you slice the ball, you say the same joke every single week. Yeah, like something along the lines of having a cup of tea.
That was I'll have a cup of tea with that slice. That's funny. I haven't told that one in a while. That's because I have not graced the football pitch in a long time. Yeah.
But I do want to go onto the topic, because I had a few questions about it actually when I broadcasted it on my list. So I'll just get you straight into it, Ibrahim. How does one not go broke, like myself and Iqbal?
How does one not go broke? I think there's like some ancient Babylonian teaching that says that if thy earns 10 coins, then only spend 9 of them. I think that is like, in a nutshell, that's the answer.
No, there's actually something else. I saw it in one of your videos when I was like sort of researching, like just pre-show. You also, one of the videos, and this is why I mentioned the story at the beginning, you mentioned about being skilled. And actually, sometimes it's not about, when you're at a young age, it shouldn't really be about the money, but rather having the skills. So money is not a problem later on, and that.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I mean, I'm not going to disagree with my past self, unless he's gone completely off piste. No, I agree with that, and I think given that a lot of the younger members of the audience, for you guys, you'll probably be relatively poor in money, but you'll have lots of time, and actually, I think that's the key asset that you have to invest right now. And I think a lot of the time, and looking back in retrospect, you have honestly so much time at the university stage or the college stage, and in your early life, especially before you get married. And if you can just invest that in a way that is going to set you up from a purely financial perspective, you can do it lots of other ways as well. But if you just invest that time to set yourself up from a financial perspective, then you'll be really well set by the time you're 30. And it's better to make all the bad financial decisions and get all of that kind of learning out of the way when you're 19 or 20 and you're messing around with 500 or £1,000, as opposed to learning it the first time when you're 30 and you've got a mortgage and 2 kids, and you decide, what, let me put this 30,000 on I don't know, a random cryptocurrency, and see what happens. That's probably not the time to be making those decisions.
SubhanAllah. And even actually, I remember someone was asking, like, if I have £100, how should I invest it? One of the best answers I heard someone give is invest it in your education, especially at a younger age. But also, like, a part of education is like when you don't have the responsibility, like, fail as well. You haven't got as much to lose. But before we get into it, I do want to invite Ayub. I think he's aware, he's on camera now. So it'd be good to invite him on, inshallah. But just for everyone watching,
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. How are you doing? You'll be right.
Alhamdulillah, I'm blessed to be in such illuminating company. I can see from the comments you guys have stirred up a hornet's nest already. What are we doing tonight?
If I could ask the producer to put some of the comments on the screen so that we can see them, inshallah, that'd be great. Alhamdulillah. Oh, lol.
Yeah, like that's like so like insightful. Lol.
Like, lol. That's the first lol I've had in a couple of years, I think.
Lol. Alhamdulillah.
SubhanAllah. Ayub, just before I get into it, I just want to remind the listeners, one of the things we're trying to do during these last 10 nights is to raise some much needed funds for Islamic Network. Alhamdulillah, not impressed with the lack of education comment. Well, the lack of education. Oh, well, Umar, that was Umar saying that. Maybe Umar also didn't do a degree, and that's why he's not impressed with it. I'm not sure. But alhamdulillah. And Umar, if you're not impressed with it, feel free to jump on and tell Iqbal why you're not impressed with that. SubhanAllah. And tell him to his face. Turn your camera on as well while you're at it. SubhanAllah. Yeah, so tonight, one of the things we will be doing is raising money for Islamic Network. Alhamdulillah, as an organization, we empower and support mosques to engage and nurture the local youth. Our focus isn't to directly help youth, but rather work on the leadership and to make mosques a place. I remember, subhanAllah, 10 years ago, when I was someone who needed youth clubs, etc. You can hear the Ottoman drummers waking everyone up for suhoor. I remember 10 years ago when the conservatives were like just in power and youth clubs were closing down left, right, and centre. One of the things that came to my mind then was that within a 5-minute drive, right, and I'm sure you guys all have this wherever you guys live as well, you will find a masjid that has thousands of people through its door, week in, week out. They own the building outright, and they're much bigger than most youth centres. And I also realised, and I've said this story before, I remember once at one of the youth clubs we were at, the youth worker said, it's all right to have premarital relationships, but just make sure you protect yourself, and that also got me to realize that our values aren't the same, and there are slightly different values. That was back then, and since then I think another 100 youth clubs have closed down, and I think mosques, not even just for Muslim youth as well, we have a responsibility and also the opportunity to really, really change the life of our local youth. And that's really what we're doing, working with mosques to change the life of their local youth, to be there for them when they need them, to engage them, and to take them on a transformational journey. So yeah, please do donate towards that. £75 on average covers the cost of one event. £15 a month helps one youth every month. That's on a weekly basis. So yeah, no, alhamdulillah. Over to you, Ayub. You just joined us.
Alhamdulillah. Well, no, it's an interesting discussion. So on my broadcast just now, just to get people to watch, hi mum, hi dad, is I put, tonight is the 23rd odd night of the last 10 nights of Ramadan. We know that we should seek Laylatul Qadr on all of the last 10 nights of Ramadan, but there is a higher chance perhaps of it being on an odd night. So in my broadcast, I said I'm being joined by the experts in the field on investment banking, on how you should invest your sadaqah tonight. We have former investment banker and the Islamic finance guru. So do share with us, inshallah, the benefit of your combined, 40, 50 years of experience. Where should people invest their money?
50. I think we're clearly
combined. I said combined experience.
I think even combined, I'm not sure that would add up.
I had Iqbal, bro. You were responsible for the recession. One of the guys responsible for the recession in 2009.
No, absolutely, yeah.
And so now he's dedicating the rest of his life to counter it. No, but so I said in my broadcast, like, everyone is looking to invest their money tonight, and join the show to find out what's a smart investment. Because as Muslims, we always want, we should build wells, and we should take care of humanitarian projects, and we should sponsor orphans, and all of these things are good. But what's a smarter investment, for someone to have? I think just as I joined Hamza, you're talking about, if you had £500, you should invest in your education. But let's say someone tonight has got money to give in sadaqah. How should they invest that so that they get the most return, ajr-wise, inshallah? Who wants to jump in?
Iqbal, one of the reasons I had you on the show, right, with your work at NZF, subhanallah, from our experience, right, I do think the poverty trap, or maybe being a second generation Muslim sometimes, it can have a massive impact on, the rest of your life, and most of the time it does. And on the topic of like how not being broke, and before we get into that, like, some people are like, why are you choosing this subject? I think it is important. When someone who let's say someone's a young teenager or an older teenager, and then they become married, and then they have financial crisis, right, within that time, it affects everything. It affects the salah. It can affect the iman. Sometimes it's better, sometimes not. It affects many things. How have you found like having financial worries to affect people's lives?
Well, obviously, it affects it significantly, right? Like, I think where people are in dire financial kind of circumstances, or they can't afford their sort of basics, then obviously it's very all-consuming, because that's really all you end up thinking about. You can't really think about anything else. So it becomes a very constrained situation. It's actually interesting that there's a prophetic supplication, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-kufri wal-faqr wa a'udhu bika min adhab al-qabr. La ilaha illa ant. So here the Prophet ﷺ is taking refuge in Allah from disbelief and poverty, and from the punishment of the grave. And so these three things, what's the common link between all of these three things? They're all kind of constraints, actually. Kufr is a constraint, right? Kufr is basically where you are you're sort of constraining and tightening your limiting your kind of potential and tightening your field of aspirational vision just to basically the immediate or this life. Faqr is a constraint, material constraint. And adhab al-qabr, what is the punishment of the grave? It is a tightening. It is a tightening. So it's quite interesting. And then he finished la ilaha illa ant, as if this was the way to break free from all of these things, so yeah, like I think it's very constraining. It limits your vision, it limits your potential, and actually that's why also, like, it's important not to or it's important to realize also the fact that poverty is in the eyes of the, or is in, they say beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? So poverty is also in the eyes or the experience of the individual, meaning these discussions that always happen about, people are poor in this place than that place or the other place, are really kind of completely irrelevant, actually, to be frank. They're completely irrelevant sort of comparisons to make, because the truth is that someone who is, whether they're in this country or wherever they are, the experience of poverty or deprivation is not, it doesn't take anything away from this person's experience here, just because someone else somewhere else has a much more, I think we've lost two people, has a much more kind of extreme or a difficult kind of experience. So yeah, it's constraining. It makes life difficult, and it's something which and that's why, by the way, that's why we are actually told to use our zakat and other funds to ensure that especially believers are not in a situation where they are constantly experiencing this poverty, because that undermines them and it undermines all of us, basically. The whole community, the whole team is weaker as a result.
SubhanAllah. But you're a transformational type of guy, transform my salah. I remember the sessions we've had with Islamic Network and youth work, it's always been about the transformational journey. I guess a real transformational journey for someone who is in the position where they might need to receive zakat, a real transformational journey would be from them receiving zakat to being someone that now gives zakat. How does that journey look like? Sometimes obviously it can be just simply helping them with uniform for work, getting a course for security or any type of course, right? It can be something simple like that. But if it's someone who like needs, I don't know, money, investment, to get something started, what's the best way to go about doing that?
It really depends. Like it depends in different contexts, right? So NZF has a certain kind of ways of doing things to help with this. But it's very varied. So sometimes it's about helping people from an educational standpoint to gain some qualification. Sometimes about helping them to get secure housing, because once they've got secure, affordable housing, they can actually have a base and then kind of think about the next steps. Sometimes it is, like you said, like almost like a microfinance type of thing, where you're just helping them with some effectively a small business startup kind of thing. So at a kind of very simple level, there are lots of avenues, and it depends. Then you have to support people based on their kind of aspirations, capabilities, right, and whatever is possible. Obviously, Ibrahim can speak to more kind of I suppose maybe moving people on for people who have the ideas, who are trying to pursue sort of bigger sort of entrepreneurial ventures and stuff. Obviously, that's where he specializes in trying to secure funding for those kinds of things.
Yeah, Ibrahim, I'm just going to pass it straight over to you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, I think that with the Muslim community as a whole, there's a few things. One is, I feel like we should think about our wealth and our money as not just ours, but also like a trust and a responsibility that we have to look after it for the next generation. There was a very famous ad that it still sticks with me. Patek Philippe. You never really own a Patek Philippe. You only look after it for the next generation. They've done a good PR job on me, because it's just stuck with me since I was a kid.
Your wrist. Can we see your left wrist just to check? whether you now possess it, Take Philippe.
I'm still free. I'm free of the shackles.
Spent it on the ring instead.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that's how we should think about wealth, full stop, because ultimately, it's sometimes we don't, when we're looking to look after the wealth for ourselves, we don't necessarily we can be quite relaxed about it because it's our money at the end of the day. But when you elevate that decision making to the question of, this is money that you've been entrusted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to look after, and what are you going to do with that? That then becomes, I think, a much more deeper question. And broadly speaking, I think we as a Muslim community have a duty to make sure that we're earning in a halal way, we're spending on things that need to be spent on. And I actually think that charity is really just the other side of the investment coin. They're both ways of deploying assets, and you want to be deploying assets in areas that are, of course, you might want to deal with some of the short-term stuff, but actually you definitely want to be investing in the long-term stuff that's going to get you a lot of return. And the way that, at least I've been thinking about it when it comes to investing is, the way that Muslims can really quickly move the needle is probably in two key ways, right? So you've got this pot of money, this, I don't know, £100 that the Ummah owns. And what you can do with that is manage that £100 better. And you can try and make that £100 become 120, £150. So I think that is, about managing your personal finances better, investing your money, getting out of debt, getting onto the housing ladder, doing all of that piece. And we talk a lot.
When you say managing your finances better, practically, based on your experience as well, what does that really mean?
Let me get to that. Let me just kind of frame the discussion.
Sure.
So the second bit of that, of this pot, is by adding more money to that pot externally. So rather than taking that money and investing it and growing it, you actually add to that pot. And I think that looks like entrepreneurship, where you create more value, you create more wealth from nothing. And you want to be supporting entrepreneurs, and obviously we do a little bit of work on that front as well. So I guess coming back to your question, what do you mean by personal finance and investing your money? What's that all about? Like a whistle-stop tour of that in like 45 seconds is, it should all be about priorities. First thing is get yourself earning money, so you're spending less than you're making, i.e. you're saving a little bit. That's the first step, because now you're breaking even. You want to be having enough to survive for 6 months, or some kind of emergency fund that you can live off for 6 months. Then you probably want to get onto the housing ladder. So that means probably saving up for a deposit for an Islamic mortgage. And then finally, and that's the fun bit, where you now start building a diversified portfolio to achieve whatever investment goals that you've set yourself. So those are the kind of, I guess, 4 steps to personal finance freedom.
No, I guess what my question was, one thing I've noticed, I heard that you speak about it sometimes as well. We really live in like a Klarna generation. Where
what generation?
A Klarna generation where if we're buying.
Where's that?
Klarna is that interest-free.
Oh, right.
Pay it forward in the future. You basically live your life on credit.
Buy now, pay later.
Buy now, pay later. Yeah. What that sort of has, I feel, and I've seen it a lot, is it gives people like the opportunity to live without their means, like not within their means. And that has big issues.
Well, the whole society is built on living outside of your means. The entire mortgage industry is predicated on you living outside of your means. You want a house that you can't afford. You want a car that you can't afford. Here, we'll give you a way to do it, and you pay over the top interest on it for the rest of your life, pretty much.
Yes, from a youth perspective, I've just really noticed it a lot more. But coming back to like managing finance, I don't know, let's say you're earning so I started working from like a young age. It wasn't a lot, but alhamdulillah, like I used to give it to my mum and she used to save it for me, you know. I used to also spend like £20 a week on sweets, right? SubhanAllah. But like what I'm trying to get at is when it comes to managing money, what does that really mean? I think, and also the other reason why I'm asking is, I think like what 1 in 2 youth are brought up in single parent households, and sometimes it's going to be your father like explaining this to you, and sometimes not all of us are in that situation to have that discussion. What does it really mean to manage your finance before you invest? What does that mean?
Right. Yeah, it's a really good point. I think there's like if you're in a situation where money is a bit tight, i.e., you regularly end up needing to borrow money or going into overdraft or anything like that, then you need to ask yourself 2 key questions, which is, can I afford it, and do I need it, right? And if the answer to any of those is no, then you shouldn't be buying it, just full stop. Because and you made a really good point about this, buy now pay later generation, like that makes it easier for you to get that purchase. But it's and there is actually a role for that, by the way. There's actually a real value to having buy now pay later, because a lot of Islamic finance can be based upon that. But you should resist that from a personal finance perspective if you know that that's psychologically not good for you, and like you're now living off credit because 90% of the time you're having to buy something like that. Where you become a little bit more affluent, you've got a bit of money to spend, then you need to ask yourself, like, am I going to actually use this thing? And is this something that is affordable for me? That then becomes a bit more about usage as opposed to, can I actually, is this necessary?
Absolutely. There's a Daif hadith to the wedding, the extent of which is getting a. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yeah.
No, I was saying there is a Daif hadith with a wedding, is to the meaning of taking a loan. One who gives a loan is better than one, or one who takes a loan is better than one who begs or gives in charity or something like that. It's Daif, but the idea, the principle behind it, I'll try and dig it out because it's there's still lessons to be extracted from it. The idea is that where you have a legitimate need for investment in your business or in your work for etc., then you should go out and seek that from in a halal way from the Muslim community. But yeah, when it comes to personal finances, I think if we bring the discussion back to young people, like there is a huge movement now of of renting, of leasing vehicles. There is a, I don't know if you guys maybe you can see it or sense it. There's a deliberate step towards I'm just gonna lease a car, and then after 4 years I'll get another car and I'll lease it. And that idea of ownership, that, oh, this is mine, and I'll take care of this car for the next 25 years until I can no longer get the parts for it, that is slowly evaporating, I think. But for young people, like, if someone had was in that situation, 16, 17, I think they can't drive at 16, 17, 18, they've just passed, they want to get a car. These are real life situations that young people are facing. Should they get a car? Should they get a ped? Should they get a little scooter? Should they just take the bus? What kind of considerations? I'll share. I've got too many stories. I'll share another story about someone who did all the calculations. And anyway, I'll just give the story if I tell you what they did the calculations in. But maybe I'll share it later, inshallah. But before I do, Hamza, there is something coming on the screen right now. If you want to share with the class.
The class? What class, bro?
Well, the comments are like, this is such an intellectual discussion. Here, wait, where is it gone?
Intellectual.
You go. This discussion sounds super duper intellectual from Y Shizzle. Of course it does. So yeah, let's bring it back to the focus on the.
So £75 covers the cost of one youth engagement session for 20 young men or women. I want to get onto that actually. One of the things that we do say at Islamic Network is if we ever had to make the choice, and and it was one of those weird situations. Personally, we prioritize doing stuff for the sisters over the brothers within the work in the Muslim community. Brothers, they can go out to eat, no issue, not like they just can't. Sometimes there can be cultural issues. Go play sports, football, whatever, they can go at whatever time they want usually. One of the things that we believe in, right? For every mosque we work with, there has to be a sisters weekly youth engagement event every single week. It's not good enough to just do things for brothers. I think as an ummah, maybe for the last 700 years, right? If you look at history, especially scholarship, we may have, left the sisters behind. Where that becomes very practical is maybe when your daughter gets married and she might have children and she might need to speak to someone about an issue. Or even before she gets married, there's an issue she just can't speak to you about. And it's perfectly fine if they have issues that they can't speak to you about. But they need someone that is going to give them advice or be there for them or listen to them, that cares about their afterlife and not just the life in this world and the immediate sort of emotions. They need that as much as the brothers do. So it's really important to ensure I support even a session. It's just £75 to cover the cost of one. And in each month we work with, these sessions will be happening week in, week out. Even personally, I don't think once a week is enough. It's just where we are right now. I would love that, 2-3 years from now, we're doing 2, 3, 4, 5 effective transformational activities in the mosque for you throughout the week. SubhanAllah.
Hamza, I know one of your favorite speakers, Grant Cardone, always talks about 10xing everything. But, there's 20 young people. We're talking about 20xing stuff now.
Yeah, SubhanAllah. SubhanAllah. I guess we've got these finance guys on. They know more about it than I do. Alhamdulillah.
These finance guys.
These finance guys, bro.
Every time you mention it, I see Iqbal chuckle. These finance guys.
Alhamdulillah. SubhanAllah, I had a question for Iqbal, actually. Again, I mentioned this right at the beginning, and I'm not sure if people were aware, but growing up, I remember we had the magazines locally, or the newsletters and newsletters. I remember the weekly football. I remember the weekly sort of educational classes that started in your house, right, every Friday. This sort of grassroots type of work. I think you started at a really young age. In terms of for everything you've done now, how important do you think that was?
For me?
Yeah, for yourself and even the community.
No, alhamdulillah, I think it was. I think doing things like that from a young age gives you the, in a way that you only kind of sort of work out later. It kind of gives you the experience of just, I suppose, managing people, processes, like in just a really simple kind of way, right? So it gives you just confidence to do that later on. And I think, I think one thing that in recent years, like I've had a number of experiences where people have, people have mentioned, I've come across people who kind of maybe have benefited from, from various things that were said or happened, like you referenced at the beginning of this session. And they cite, a particular experience as having really affected them or, changed their thinking and perhaps changed their direction as well. So I think things like that are very rewarding and powerful because, and that's why, what you guys are doing is really important because actually, you can have the kind of intervention or the effect on a young person that they will continue to benefit from, long after basically you've sort of fallen out of touch and forgotten about them, but they will never forget about you or the experience that you facilitated. So I think, I think it's very, these kinds of interventions at a young age are very important, and actually they're badly lacking. I mean, I actually think that, I think when I was a sort of maybe my teenage years, like there was certainly more. There seemed to be more of a buzz around what was going on for young people at that time than even sometimes you feel that there is now. You know, like things like, you know, young Muslims and these things were very, very active across the country, you know, organizing a number of different people in youth camps and this and that and everything else. Whereas nowadays, I'm not sure, it doesn't seem to be as prevalent, basically. So I think, you know, what you guys are doing is really important and fills a very important gap. You know, gives a space for people to be able to, you know, young people to congregate and to sort of have a good time, but also feel that sense of belonging, you know, to the community as well.
When I spoke to I've spoken to like Mashayikh scholars around the world about this issue, whether it's Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Turkey, UK, and other countries. One of the things that they've all said, I'm not going to make a sweeping statement like it's the biggest, but they've all said it's one of the biggest fard kifayas, like a communal obligation, that I'll use your word as Team Islam. We're really struggling. We're just not doing it properly as an ummah. When you look at from a younger age the hurdles that are there, whether it's just on every single level of life, but what are we really doing about that to make a change? And actually, even if you can't donate, just for the listeners, and even if you can't get involved with a youth organization, and I'm sure you can. One, you can just contact us. We've got hubs all over London at least, and even places outside of London like Milton Keynes, Blackburn, places like that. At least do something for your family. At least do something in your local neighborhood, right? Just do something to engage your local youth. But yeah, no, I'll pass it back to you, Ayub. That was a long answer to, I think, one of the questions you had.
No, it's interesting. Alhamdulillah.
I think Ibrahim wanted to add something.
I mean, it wasn't massive value add, but I thought it'd be a fun anecdote.
I didn't say valuable. I just said you want to say something.
So I used to, my mum in particular, she was a bit of a militant, and she forced me into like teaching kids at quite an early age. But it was that early that, you know, as a 14-year-old, I was teaching like 12-year-old kids with zero training on, like, you know, classroom management, and these were kids who didn't want to be there. So that was one heck of an experience. And I remember that at a certain point, someone, like one of the kids, was squared up to me. He was like, "All right, I'm going to take you on. Come with me outside." And so we had to be separated. And then, you know, ultimately, I think I learned a lot from that experience. And when I went back to classrooms when I was about 21, and I was teaching kids of like 8 years old, I was like, wow, this is like so much easier. Like, this is what, you know, teaching actually feels like. It's not like warfare out and out, you know, between two people.
I think teenagers, which is the age group that we work with, it's a completely different kettle of fish. It is. That's why actually, you know, we have something called the guide to what is effective youth engagement. Like, I think sometimes, as I don't know, role models or religious people, however you want to call it, whenever we're put in front of youth, we're just like, we go into lecture mode and we start doing bayans and talks and lectures on what they should do with their lives. Firstly, they switch off, but secondly, we don't actually know what their problems are, and it sort of helps to deal with even like just how they behave. One of the things that's really important in the settings of a hub that we create is it's a home away from home. You create the environment where it's like you're having your best friends over to your house. That's really, really important. And in doing so, and in having the right thought-provoking discussions, you can actually deal with a real issue. When a young person comes to you, and let's say he's part of a gang, 90% of the time the issue is not the gang, right? I remember during the thick of lockdown, I had one of my busiest weeks ever.
The thick of lockdown?
I've got a list, man. Allow me, bro. During the thick...
That's what I had too.
Yeah. SubhanAllah. there was a week, right, where I give it one of the days. A brother in South London, he had got stabbed, and his parents sort of through their local mosque, the local imam who got in contact with myself, I went to visit him, and his parents were like, he also wanted to leave the house, and from the parents' angle, they're like, I think he's got a girlfriend and he wants to go live with her. When I actually spoke to him, he said that my father's abusing my mother, and I just cannot live here anymore. In that 1 week alone, the amount of similar stories to that is more than I've had in the last 10 years. SubhanAllah, the effect that lockdown's had. That's just one of the weeks. Whilst I'm with him and speaking to him, and actually when I first got there, he goes, why are you here? What do you want? Do I know you? Where have I seen you? But alhamdulillah, we were able to sort of calm the conversation down and speak properly. Whilst I was with him, I get another phone call from another brother. My dad beating me up. He hit my stepmom in the head. Like, whilst I'm with this other brother. Sometimes the issues, we don't really see it. There's root cause problems, right? That isn't actually pornography, or it isn't actually gang crime life, or even addiction. Yeah. There's reasons why these things happen. And if we don't build a powerful relationship with them, we'll never know what the issues are to actually help where the help's actually needed. And so just assuming that we know what the problem is. That's what I found a lot of the time, subhanAllah. I do want to take it back on. We've just gone way off topic. And actually, just before I do that, I'm sure in the comment section, if you do want to donate, the link is there. Donate with, you have not attained that you have not, maybe piety or taqwa, or I don't know how you do translate that, until you give from what you love. Yes, subhanAllah, brothers and sisters, donating this inshallah, because it's not going to just, you're not donating to just an event, you're donating to people, right? When a young person that might be thinking about leaving the deen, or might be thinking about committing suicide, or doesn't know why to pray, or what's the point of salah, or doesn't know how to pray, doesn't care about salah, can go on a journey to now loving salah, right? To understanding how to maybe build a powerful relationship with the parents, regardless of how they might feel about their parents. When they go through that journey, and then they start giving sadaqah, and they start teaching their children Quran when they're older, you get the reward for all of that. SubhanAllah. But yeah, I feel like I've spoken too much. So if someone else, please jump in. But you're all on mute, except Iqbal.
No, what you say is valuable. Iqbal, the amount of times Hamza references your sessions when he was a kid, in your house, and the football and the food and the biryani, and what all the goodness that happened there, mashallah. I can see, mashallah, the impact it's had on his life and the direction that he's taken, and may Allah accept it from you. But this is what we talk about, real investment here. And you created in your local area a hub, intentionally or unintentionally, it became a hub. And now imagine, that multiplied, 5 times, 20 times, 50 times, 100 times in communities up and down the country. One of the things, as you guys know, that we're working on this now, is establishing a network of hubs, most of the time based within people's local masjids, because that's where we want, as a community, as an ummah, that's where we want people to be turning to in their time of need. We've drifted away from the notion of what a masjid is. What we have in, I would argue, and I'm happy to argue this point, I would argue that 90% of our masjids are not masjids. They are musallas. They are just people where people come and perform salah. In the true sense of what a masjid is, they're not living up to it. Because if we look at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it was, yes, they performed salah there, but they did so much more there. That's where they gathered. That's where they met delegations. That's where fundraising took place. That's where all of these things happened. And it was a much more holistic, much more nuanced place than just they come, they prayed, and they left. There are instances where I think it was Umar radiallahu anh, he used to take it in turns with his neighbor, that one day one would work and one would go and sit in the company of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then they'd switch so that they would have the best of both. SubhanAllah, Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, even when he was Khalifa, he would be very careful to when he was working for the Ummah, he had one set of tools, a candle, etc. And whenever business occurred that was not to do with the Ummah, with his own private stuff, he'd extinguish that candle. And we had, and all of this is taking place in the masjid or in the compound of, what we now know as Masjid Nabawi. So now imagine that idea coming back in the 21st century to all of our communities. We talk about this actually in other faith groups. We look at for example, the Jewish community in the UK, and we remark at how well knit, how tightly knit, how established they are. In some places of London, they have their own police force. Which is true for those of you who don't know, they have their own police. They have their own rules, they have their own courts, and within the realm of the synagogue itself, you hear lots of stories of, that they take care of their own. If you need a lawyer, you find him in the synagogue. You need a banker, you'll find him in the synagogue. You need a doctor, you'll find but we don't have that in the Muslim community. In fact, I know I would wager that many Muslims would prefer not to go to a Muslim in their time of need than otherwise. But the idea of creating these hubs, inshallah, what do you guys think? Is it a romantic notion, or is it something that we can achieve in our generation, inshallah?
I think it's very achievable.
I think it's both romantic and achievable.
Sounds like a perfect marriage.
Yeah,
Go on, Ibrahim, sorry. I just wanted to make that point because it's important to realize that the romantic is achievable. These are not actually opposites.
I like it. You're winning points on the sister side today, I think.
That wasn't my intention. So anyway, go on, Ibrahim, go on.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, look, I think it's very, very achievable, and I think what work you guys are doing in enabling key community leaders or key people to actually deliver that stuff in the different communities is at the heart of the issue, because it's not the place, it's not the location that's the issue. Like, we've got those now. It's about bringing them to life and having people who connect up the dots between the community and establish the events and join together the youth and all that sort of thing, and that requires a certain skill set, which I guess in a nutshell, that's youth work, right? And that's where I think the work that you guys are doing is so important. I mean, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, given this is the focus of the work that you're doing. How do you there's a generational shift going on here as well, isn't there? There's the older generation who are currently the heads of the masajid, and they've obviously done great work in setting that masjid up. But now you've got a bit of a disconnect sometimes in some masajid between that and the younger generation who, they're on TikTok, whereas for the older generation, that's a sound that a car makes. And how do you bridge that gap? I'd love to hear your thoughts as well on this.
Firstly, from a narrative perspective, when we speak about it, right? 50 years ago, 30 years ago, when our uncles, our fathers, our grandparents, some of us, when they came to this country, there was a need just to establish mosques. There was a real need for it. A place where 5 days, where the 5 salat every day are established, the Jummah is established, and somewhere that's just there, right? There was actually a need for that. And if it wasn't for their work, we wouldn't have the mosque there today that we benefit from greatly, And the older generation, they worked hard to give what that community really needed, subhanAllah. Whereas now, the second generation Muslims, the third generation Muslims, those needs have developed, and it's up to us, right? It's up to us to carry on the legacy of the older generation, and to now start serving the needs of our generation, right? Because I hear a lot of people sometimes when they speak about the management of mosques, really negative, etc. For us, that's a starting point. That's not true. It really isn't true. Look, alhamdulillah, I've worked with over 200 mosques, right, in the last 10 years, like personally spoken to them, and probably spoken to another 100 that we couldn't do stuff with, but they really wanted to. Yeah. The older generation aren't from our experience, and not anti these type of things. That's the first thing we have to understand, and we have to have, when we speak in a way that's not just positive but beautiful, right? And if we can give respect to the uncles, right, they'd happily give us a responsibility to start doing that. And I think that in the way that we speak and the way that we interact is the starting point. And if we can have this positive and a beautiful way of speaking, right, you will see that you will have the space to sort of start dealing with modern day issues. I can honestly say that I don't know all the modern day issues, right? I'd be lying if I did. I think every single year issues are developing, etc. But it comes back down to root cause issues for us. The three sort of root cause issues that we try and sort of help tackle. One is obviously identity, as in who are you, what are you doing with your life, why are you in this world. The second is a lack in access to positive role models. And Iqbal's probably smiling because he remembers the brainstorming sessions we had coming up with some of these. But subhanAllah, what are positive role models? Your family, parents, peer group, teachers, mentors, and obviously historic. But having access to positive role models. The third is having strong positive character traits like empathy, like having a strong willpower, like having courage. Different characteristics, but strong characteristics, right? Ultimately, if young people are confident in their identity and they're surrounded by positive role models, and they're grounded in strong positive characteristics, whilst none of us are perfect, whilst we all have tests, whilst Iman does go up and down, whilst there are sometimes, no one's perfect, right? When they do enter their early adult life, they won't start 10 steps behind, and that's really the root of what we're trying to do. I wouldn't say we're really trying to deal with a TikTok issue, or it's just really these sort of root cause type issues that are our main focus. And that is what I would say, subhanAllah. Iqbal, we lost you for a second there. Good to have you back on.
That's it. But although I think we should wrap up soon. What do you think?
Yeah, before we do, I wanted to ask you something about it, right? It's obviously the last third of the night. One of the things we should be doing to try and get Laylatul Qadr is standing up in Salah. And recently you started the project of Transform My Salah, which I think is amazing. MashaAllah, I've seen some of the stuff you guys are doing. And I think the Telegram group's really good. I think everyone should join that. Maybe if someone can post a link for it, it'd be great. In what could maybe be the night of power, or almost definitely if Allah gives us life, it will be, if it hasn't gone already, it will be in the upcoming week. What can we do differently in our Salah to really benefit from it? Not just in Ramadan, but outside of Ramadan as well.
Well, it's a big question. So, look, I think the main thing that I kind of emphasize to people is, quality over quantity. A common question during Ramadan from people has been to do, what do I do when I'm standing behind the Imam, right? I don't know what's going on, and unfortunately, there's only so much you can really say, right, to help someone in that scenario, and it's a classic sort of situation that someone gets themselves in. On the one hand, they feel like the merit of standing in Salah, in voluntary prayers, right, in that way, but on the other hand, they're not really sort of engaging, or it's hard to engage because they don't really know what's going on. So definitely quality over quantity, and really focusing on or thinking about what it is that you're actually saying when you're saying it, which is really challenging, by the way. I mean, I think, I think even people who are, conscientious, believing sort of Muslims, like, really struggle with this issue, even, just being able to express themselves in the salah, through the salah, from beginning to end, in a way where they're fully engaged, they understand what they're saying whilst they're saying it, and they mean what they're saying. So I think taking the trouble to think about, ponder, reflect on, learn, memorize just the meanings of the words that we're actually saying, and then to practice saying them in a way that is actually kind of meaningful is really the key thing, to be honest. I mean, it's really what it comes down to, frankly, so that, I think, is something I would definitely emphasize a lot. Yeah.
If there's one habit, just one habit someone could change in their life to have that deeper meaning, what would that be for yourself?
Well, I think, in terms of the actual word meanings, like, obviously it's a question of learning and memorizing, right? In terms of actually trying to make the whole prayer more meaningful, I think it's important to take some time just before going into the salah, like, to really think about what you're about to do. So oftentimes we will come to the place where we are going to pray, and then we start straight away. I think actually using some time, up to a minute, whatever, just reflecting and thinking about what it is we're about to do, why this is so important, what it represents, and really imagining that you're, in the presence of Allah, that Allah is in front of you, that you're kind of, going to be engaging this direct address to Him, I think is really important, rather than just doing it as something that we have to do, and it becomes like a like a sort of tick box sort of ritual exercise. Each time that really needs refreshing every single time, just like you need to be, your wudu needs refreshing, sort of, for each salah. In a similar way, it's just a way of really renewing your intention, and just fixing your mindset before you begin, which helps then throughout, at least gets you off to a strong start.
And I guess practically, even like if you're at work, right, schedule out, instead of scheduling out 5 minutes, or not even scheduling out anything and just rushing for it when you remember, put out like 15 minutes for your salah time, maybe 20 minutes, so it gives you the chance to sit down, reflect, and then pray your salah, etc. SubhanAllah. Before we do come to a conclusion, inshallah, Ibrahim, it's been a pleasure to meet you, mashallah. I've never met you before this, SubhanAllah, and yeah, Iqbal gave me your number without your permission. Or maybe he took your permission, I don't know. SubhanAllah. Ibrahim, I think with Islamic Finance Guru, it is something, it's a fairly new project, or it's come out there. Mashallah, I've seen it go from strength to strength. I think one of your first podcasts was with Iqbal. It looked like he was like in a bedroom or something, and now, mashallah, like I was watching your podcast recently, Sheikh Haytham.
And now you're doing it from your lounge.
I've come downstairs.
It has come strength to strength, but I do see it as an asset to everyone. How can someone take benefit from Islamic Finance Guru? Like,
just visit the website, give them an email address, and that's all they need.
That's it. That's all you. Once you give us the email, then we'll be hounding you with hopefully beneficial knowledge for the rest of your life, probably. But no, I think in all seriousness, look, I think there's for someone who's just starting out, there's a halal investing 101 guides that we have, which you can find. We've got a YouTube channel that you can check out that does, I hope, interesting stuff. And then we've got Telegram groups that you can join. So there's about 10,000 plus people on there now. They're pretty active, and just by osmosis, I find that you learn a lot of stuff. Like, we've got a crypto group, which I've learned a tremendous amount. I hadn't actually invested in crypto until earlier this year, and that whole thing started because I started reading and talking to people on that group, and just learned a huge amount. So yeah, those are the things I'd probably say. Subscribe, check out the guides, YouTube and Telegram.
Inshallah, if maybe someone could put it on the comments or on the screen, that would be great, inshallah. And finally, to conclude, Iqbal, if I could ask you to recite some Quran, try and make it longer than 2 or 3 minutes, and maybe read some translation if you don't mind.
Read some translation. All right. Well,
after the
let me get my translation out.
Cool.
So where shall I recite from?
Wherever you want, whatever has had meaning for you, I guess. Well, everything should the most meaning at this current point in your life.
Right.
Whilst Iqbal's finding the ayah to read, just a reminder for anyone listening, head over to islamicnetwork.net/donate to make a donation, inshallah. Your donation will be used towards the youth who are not the future. They are the present, and the children of the future. When you make an investment, think 7 generations down the line. Based on that sort of our personal research, when someone makes like real changes to their lives, it doesn't just affect them, it affects their children in the next 7 generations. And that's how you should see your donation. When you donate, it's 7 generations of change, subhanAllah. Iqbal, are you ready to?
Yes.
Allah, inshallah. If you can make Iqbal full screen.
Say again?
No, sorry, speaking to producer.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. نحن خلقناكم فلولا تصدقون أفرأيتم ما تمنون أأنتم تخلقونه أم نحن الخالقون نحن قدرنا بينكم الموت وما نحن بمسبوقين على أن نبدل أمثالكم وننشئكم فيما لا تعلمون ولقد علمتم النشأة الأولى فلولا تذكرون أفرأيتم ما تحرثون أأنتم تزرعونه أم نحن الزارعون لو نشاء لجعلناه حطاما فظلتم تفكهون إنا لمغرمون بل نحن محرومون أفرأيتم الماء الذي تشربون أأنتم أنزلتموه من المزن أم نحن المنزلون لو نشاء جعلناه أجاجا فلولا تشكرون أفرأيتم النار التي تورون أأنتم أنشأتم شجرتها أم نحن المنشئون نحن جعلناها تذكرة ومتاعا للمقوين فسبح باسم ربك العظيم. This is from Surah Al-Waqi'ah, verse 57. It was we who created you. Will you not believe? Consider the substance you emit. Do you create it yourselves, or are we the creator? We ordained death to be amongst you. Nothing could stop us if we intended to change you and recreate you in a way unknown to you. You have learned how you were first created. Will you not reflect? Consider the seeds you sow in the ground. Is it you who make them grow, or we? If we wished, we could turn your harvest into chaff and leave you to wail. We are burdened with debt, we are bereft. Consider the water you drink. Was it you who brought it down from the rain cloud, or we? If we wanted, we could make it bitter. Will you not be thankful? Consider the fire you kindle. Is it you who make the wood for it grow, or we? We made it a reminder and useful to those who kindle it. So glorify the name of your Lord, the Supreme. Can't hear you, Hamza.
SubhanAllah.
Oh, yeah, I'm muted again. There you go.
So basically, I was unmuting myself, and the host was also unmuting myself. So So muting. No, I think that's the perfect place to finish the show. Jazakallah khairan for joining us and giving us your time. And Allah bless you more in it. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك استغفر الله واتوب اليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Take care. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.